All right, Coach. Hey, thanks for joining me today on this Simple Coach to Coach interview. Really do appreciate you taking the time, especially since you are a new coach.
Yeah.
Just starting in December. So I'm sure there's a little bit of a fire hose that you're drinking from. So really do appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, happy to be here. It's exciting and always fun to get out and talk about the program, what we're trying to do. And again, a guy like yourself is well versed in the D3 world, so it'll be fun to talk today.
I'm particularly interested in new coaches, and I got into this thing about understanding how programs are built. So I'm definitely keen on catching up. And yes, I don't know if I'm well versed in D3 soccer, but I probably know more than what a healthy 53-year-old should know about D3 soccer. But it is what it is. So first off, congratulations. That's awesome for you. Your first head coaching job. I am ecstatic for you, if only because you left a rival of mine, Marietta, as a Mount Union alum. I
Yeah.
couldn't be happier for you to leave Marietta. So let me ask you something. What was it about Transylvania that you thought, hey, this is a place I want to go to?
I mean, why not Transylvania? There's a lot of schools out there, there's a lot of programs, and I've been really fortunate enough to get this opportunity. And a great academic institution with a great location, with a great history of success here for men's soccer as well as all of its athletics programs. It's still within the region of recruiting that I'm pretty familiar with, and gives me a lot of resources here from the administration to work with to kind of build the team the way I want to. So I've told a lot of people that I've managed to sidestep that kind of starter job where you get out as a first-time head coach and got to grind, and maybe not in the most prestigious of locations. And I've really just kind of fallen into this fantastic opportunity here. I remember I got the offer and went into my previous head coach, and he kind of looked at me and just, you got to take it. These things don't come along very often. To again come to a place like Transylvania is just phenomenal for me, and feel very, very fortunate to be where I am now.
So tell me how you got there. Like, what was your coaching journey like? Even playing journey, that would be.
Yeah. So went to Marietta College as an undergrad, long time ago. So we've got that rivalry going all the way back.
We're done here. We're
yeah,
done.
yeah. And so actually had a knee injury kind of end my career early. Talk about life just coming full circle at times. My first game on the sidelines is what you could call a student coach, and no official capacity, just kind of how I presented myself was actually here at Transylvania with Marietta. We played on the old Thomas grass field here in Lexington. But after graduating, went up to University of Findlay, spent a few years there as the GA, the only assistant on staff. Was fortunate enough, there's a guy that I played club for growing up, Coach Smith, and had a lot of fun with him, kind of got to know the game at a different level there. And then the job opened up at Marietta as I was kind of finishing things up at Findlay, and went down there and actually started there at Marietta my first 2 years, working as the only assistant for both the men's and the women's program. So kind of double dipping there for the first 2 years, and finished off the last 4 with Coach Bergen. It really, really enjoyed my time, and then obviously this opportunity came up, and now I'm over here in Lexington with Transylvania.
That's awesome. That's awesome. The going to be a grad assistant, if the bug bites you, I found that most that's it. Like, when the bug is bitten you to coach, that's all you're doing, regardless of whatever your degree ends up being, right? Like,
Yeah, I definitely was not going in with the intent to become a full-time coach. You asked me back then, I was getting my MBA. I wanted to go make a bunch of money in the business, some business venture, and got into it. Like you said, that bug bit pretty hard, and don't know what else I would do with my life at this point. So, I absolutely love it.
The business world will still be there if you ever decide to go back. Don't fret about that. All right, so I was doing some research here. I got to put on my glasses. I was doing some research here, and this is what was in your press release in December when it was announced that you became the head coach, and this is the AD, your boss.
Yep.
Quoting. This is the AD. Our goal is to win the conference championship each year and be in the NCAA tournament annually. And we believe that Coach Federici is the perfect fit to take us in that direction. That's some pretty serious, like, bar level raised very high. Let me ask you about that. Do you think that do you like that challenge, or do you? I mean, is it something that you think like, oh my gosh, how are we going to get there?
I think it's twofold. You know, obviously it puts a little bit of pressure on your shoulders as the guy in charge of trying to make that happen. But for me, it's exciting because this administration does a fantastic job in supporting the coaching staff, the student athletes, with whatever we might need to reach those goals. You know, it's one thing for someone to go out and say, hey, we want to win a conference championship and, you know, give you pennies to deal with. But when you're here at Transylvania, that's the expectation, and they want you to fulfill that obligation, but they're also going to do everything they can to support you. You know, Holly Sheely is our athletic director, and she is, you know, got a long, you know, successful resume of her own. But one of my stats here is that 54% of our team sports have competed in their conference championship since COVID. So it's not like it's just men's soccer. You know, men's soccer does have about 9 of 18 conference titles since they've gone to Division III from NAIA. So it can be done here. It's exciting, but the more important piece is knowing that you're supported by the administration, that I've got a vision and we're trying to put it into place, and they've been fantastic. My direct admin is Kevin Calhoun, and he's been with me every step of the way here trying to make it. You know, he always tells me, he says, Ben, my job is to help say yes to things. That's, I think, a lot of times when you think of administration or you know, reporting upwards, you don't always get those yeses. So to have an environment where that's the goal, is to tell your head coaches yes, is really special to be a part of.
Yeah. Well, to me, everything the bit that I do know about D3 soccer, probably the most important thing that any school that wants to, aspires to, or is top level, is a very supportive administration, whether that's the athletic or even the school being very supportive. So that's great to hear that you have that. But so you came on board in December. What are some of the, first of all, let me ask, how did you find the program, and then what are some of these foundational things that you are installing, creating at Transylvania that to make this your own program?
Yeah, I mean, with what I found is just a great group of guys, great group of people. I think they're coming off of a year where they had a lot of adversity that wasn't necessarily on the field with some different things we're not going to get into, but a group of hungry guys that was really looking for a fresh start, I think, and found a fantastic assistant here, Matt Melzer, who graduated from Transylvania a few years back and has now been here. So he's helped guide me in some of these, you know, first conversations you always have with the team and giving me some background on things. But the big thing, like you said, is we're just trying to set a standard of what's going to be acceptable and what's going to govern, you know, our team moving forward. We can get into culture and what those specifics are if you want to, but you know, the big thing I had in the interview, one of the favorite questions I was asked was a guy who's actually coming back for a 5th year, and we're going through things. He says, Coach, we have these ideas on how to make it great, you know, 2-3 years from now, because you know, you can't just turn a program around in you know, 6 months sometimes. But he said, what are you going to do next year? It's my last year, so what are we going to do? And
smart man.
Yeah, getting right to the point. I loved it.
Yeah.
And so I'm full of bad analogies, but you know, I asked him if he'd ever seen Finding Nemo. And so there's a part in that movie where, you know, all the fish get caught in the net and they have to swim downwards in the same direction to make progress as a group, right? And so I told him that was my answer, is just to get everybody that's a part of this program to swim the same direction. You know, when I coach guys on the field, there's always a million variables, and most of the time, if everybody's moving the same direction, even if it's not perfect tactically, it tends to be a pretty good outcome because you're all on the same page and you're all pushing the same direction. So that's the big thing we focused on. And again, I've been met with great administration, great assistant coach, and the guys have really, really bought in right away.
So that's good that you're thinking about the fall. Like in your mind, not that it's going to be something that it's ever going to be set. I hope not, because if it is, then you're probably in trouble. But like, how long do you think it's going to take you for you to be able to say this is a program from head to toe that I've built, blessed, you name it?
I don't know. I guess I haven't put too much thought into that conversation. I know we've got a big group of guys coming in, but I'm a firm believer that we all stand on the shoulders of those that came before us. And so I think that, what I'm trying to do is put my fingerprints on this program, not to try and change it completely. They've had a lot of success, and I think that you could argue that there's already a little bit of a different feeling around the program, which is all that I can ask for. At the end of the day, it's, I've got to measure my successes, obviously, by wins and losses, but also by the type of people that we pump out of this program and what they do after graduation. And I think that's something that Transylvania has done for many, many years. And so how long is it going to take for me to feel like I made that impact? I think it's going to take a few classes of getting out and seeing what our guys are doing after they graduate. Yeah. What differences are they making in their communities? Or, are they coming back? Are they invested? I think that's really the special part of being in college athletics. So the culture that we preach is about really doing the right thing in whatever circumstance you're given, and making sure that you leave something better than you found it. So I think that, again, a couple years out, when we start to have some guys that have graduated and come back and are hopefully still interacting with the program, that's when I'll feel really, really good and really, really positive about what we're doing. The wins and losses, look, I don't like to lose, but I like to think we can make a pretty big jump on that pretty quickly.
What how? Because I don't know, honestly, like, how engaged is the alumni with the program or with athletics in general at Transylvania? I ask because I don't know.
Yeah, we've been, again, I've kind of stumbled into a gold mine here where we have a lot of alumni that are out and active and have already reached out to me. I was out watching just a club game here at a local high school, and on the sidelines just watching, not coaching, not a part of the clubs, are 3 Transylvania men's soccer alumni who come up and start talking to me, and they're all still involved with coaching. A lot of the Lexington area, even into northern Kentucky, is a lot of former graduates from Transylvania that played men's soccer. So it's really big. And then again, a lot of these other Division III programs are in some smaller communities where it's easy to stay in Lexington after you graduate. Whether you're in the business, ventures, we've got a lot of guys. One of them's works with dental schools and things like that. So we have a very, very supportive alumni base, and fortunate to have them within close proximity where we can get some things done and make some things happen.
That's the other piece of the puzzle. I think for all the successful programs have a deep connection to the alumni that have come through the program. That's why I was asking. How big of a deal is that you get player buy-in to what you want to do, and how's that been going so far?
I think that's key. I think that this generation of guys is really interested in the why of why we do things. They've got constant access to information. Even, I'm quite a bit younger than generations before me, but even I had to go through and look up something in a dictionary, or, with dial-up internet, hope that nobody picked up the phone and things. And now they've got so much information just at their fingertips that I think getting them to buy in and understand the why of what's going on, and giving them ownership, allowing them to make some decisions is key, because it just lets them know that they're a part of it. I've told them, again, another bad analogy is I've talked about King Arthur and his round table, and that we're all going to sit down and talk about things. And obviously, there's some things that are going to be more just, captain oriented or leadership group oriented. But at the end of the day, I reserve the right to put that crown on and say this is my decision. But I think that making good decisions as a coach is really you need all the information possible to get that out of your guys. So any information they can provide is going to help us with that. I need to see all the pieces to the puzzle to paint an accurate picture.
How have spring practices been? Well, I'm assuming you're done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
it's been done. How did your first spring practices go?
It was good. We had D3 got that day of competition, but we were able to get an alumni game in as well, where we had a bunch of guys come back. A couple All-Americans were out on the field and
Wow.
played pretty well. But for us, it was really, really productive as a group. I think that we got to have those conversations we were just talking about, setting the standards and making sure that everybody understands why we're doing things the way we're doing them. Whether it's a personal preference that I have and I try and be upfront about that, or whether it's something that the group thinks is really important to do as we move forward. I saw both sides of the coin. I think where the team struggled last year a little bit, but then I saw a lot of improvement by the time the spring was over. So a lot of excitement right now. We did our exit interviews with all the guys as they were leaving for the summer, and just kept hearing, Coach, we're excited. We're excited. We don't want to have to wait the entire summer. We just want to get right back on the field and get going. So anytime you hear that, as a coach, it's easy to, have those, I'll say, confirmation bias where, you're excited because it's new and it's exciting. But to hear the guys vocalize that themselves is really valuable to me.
This probably would be appropriate for the later on, but have you finalized your class for your recruiting class for the fall?
So I'll say we're 99% of the way there. We've gotten about, I think it's 17 guys we've got coming in right now. Still waiting on another one or two that are just late in the process, which is, a way bigger group of guys than what I'm normally comfortable bringing in. But we'll have about 15, 17 returners somewhere in there coming into the fall. And every top program I look around in the Division III level has somewhere between that 30 and 40 guys. That they can bring in guys who can grow and learn the game at the collegiate level before they have to step in and play. Mm-hmm. And I think we'll be right around that 35 mark for me here in the fall, and probably consistently moving forward is a number I'm comfortable with. But 17 incoming guys at least is a big group to handle.
Was there a big graduating class? Is that why you brought in so many freshmen? Or?
No, I think that there were some strange things here with COVID and injuries and just life circumstances that again led to some of the adversity that this program had in the fall. And so nothing that was bad. I want to kind of make it clear that Coach Vogel, the previous coach here, has been nothing but fantastic. He's an alumni of the program, and he was one of the alums that came back, participated in our alumni game, and had some fun himself. So, just a weird set of circumstances, I think, led to a little bit of a smaller roster, and just doing my part to try and get it back up to where I think it could be.
Okay, so we joked around earlier being a Marietta grad and former Marietta coach, assistant coach. Without getting either of us into trouble and going down a very deep rabbit hole, could you share some thoughts you have on the OAC, the Ohio Athletic Conference? The reason why I'm asking this is because if you played soccer in the OAC, you kind of know that it is a very football-oriented conference. Rightly, wrong, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying, and with a lot of success, right? Mount Union is, the gold standard probably for Division III football to one extent or another. What are some of your impressions and what was your experience like at Marietta in that?
Well, look, I think
even though Marietta, right? Sorry to interject, but they are. They're not. This respectfully, they're not a football school, right? They're a baseball school.
Yeah.
I
I think that's the interesting thing about the OAC is it's a top conference in a lot of sports. Obviously, with Mount Union football, it's known for that, but there's a whole lot of other, top programs coming out of there, and a bunch of different athletics. I could, give a shout out to Marietta men's basketball and men's baseball that are, both, doing extraordinary things. But I think that, when we talk about soccer, the conference is brutal. You've got people from John Carroll and Ohio Northern who have been doing it for years, to Marietta, to Wilmington has kind of had a resurgence here recently as well. Otterbeins up. That everybody in the conference is a tough game. Your alma mater, managed to win 10 games last year with a new head coach who did a great job and didn't even make the conference tournament. So I don't think it gets the credit that it should at times, but it's just every single day there's a bunch of great coaches, bunch of great players in that league, and it's definitely a stressful time to go through, but it deserves all the credit that it gets.
Yeah. No, totally correct. I forgot about Marietta basketball, Mount Union basketball just as well. And,
yeah.
I think Lax for somebody's really good at lacrosse.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I'm still not holding it against you that you're a Marietta grad.
I appreciate that.
Yep. I'm not going to say bad things like pre-record something, be like this guy. No, I'm not going to do that. Hey, I'm assuming you heard about that whole project, Century 21st Century, whatever the rule changes and all that stuff. The the full 10-month season and all that. Like, do you have any thoughts on those on that approach? This is an informal, non-binding poll that I've been doing. So
I think from a Division I standpoint, I think that makes a lot of sense. And as much as I would love to have, a 10-month season, we can work with our guys and do all that. I'm not sure what the feasibility is at the Division III level when you look at even just something as simple as sports information covering a 10-month season for soccer, splitting resources and doing all that. So that's for people much smarter than me to decide. I think that 10-month model would be fantastic if we can make it work. But I've got no idea where that sits in the pipeline. I know they pushed the vote. I think as far as the rule changes, where you're going with what we're doing now, the substitutions and overtime and all that, I think overtime you kind of lose an emotional high or low during the regular season. There's guys out there who came through and probably some of their favorite memories are that overtime win against somebody. Games, So I think that's kind of a bummer, but at the end of the day, if we're looking to put our student athletes in a better position to be successful, I think the load management that comes in there and being able to not grind yourself in for 110 minutes on a Wednesday night, getting back at 2 a.m. to then go do it again on a Saturday is probably a good thing long term. But you'll have to ask me that when we tie a game this season and see how I feel about it. So.
Do you think this is legit? I think a legit question. Do you think that's going to change the way you coach games? I keep thinking 15 minutes left, you're on the road, non-conference. Do you go for it or do you just sort of lock it down, right?
I think that's going to be individual. If we're on the road at a Calvin, then maybe I do it a little bit differently than if we're on the road against somebody else. But I think that's just for each coach to decide. A lot of times, to me, the overtime periods became a little bit of that, we don't want to lose this game, just hold on for dear life sort of thing. So maybe that fast tracks it a bit. But I think, where we're going to be sitting here at Transylvania's, we want to go for it. I'm not here to sit and play for a tie when I can go out and have a shot at winning the game. That's just my philosophy. I think that, we're going to have enough talent to do those sorts of things. But again, each situation is a little bit different. That's the beautiful part of this game.
That's awesome. Yeah, go for it. Win, go for the win. It's a game of goals. It's not a game of locking down, right? More goals the better. Hey, so we touched upon this a little bit, but you're as a new head coach and you're starting to shape the program that you want, like, can you just talk a little bit about some of the process that you've been going through in these first, well, it's now 5 months, but or 6 months, whenever, that you've been doing to, again, sort of shape. Nobody builds a program from scratch unless they just got soccer or a sport, but to shape the program in the way that you want it to directionally go.
Yeah, I think that we started with leadership meetings. So Division III is allowing us to meet with our leadership groups. I think it's 10 times. We went about once a week here through the spring semester. And kind of something that we use to kickstart that is I just put a weekly newsletter out to our entire team. I defined our leadership team as our entire team, and we put a newsletter out that would talk about, you had the daily schedule or the weekly schedule, and then games on TV that I think they should be aware of, whether it's Premiership, Champions League, whatever it might be. But the third piece of that was whether it was a podcast, a quick YouTube video, a quote, something that I wanted the guys to read and listen to, and just to kind of get the mindset going for what is good culture. We put out, you think of something like the Man in the Arena. That was one of the things we put out there, that poem there, and talked about what does that mean to us? How does that apply to what we're doing right now? And I think that getting them activated, getting them knowing where we were going with things was really valuable, so that when we got into those meetings, it was just a conversation about what we want to be, what do our values want to become, whether it was defining those non-negotiables, whether it was looking at other programs and organizations that have had a lot of success. We looked within Transylvania itself to somebody like women's basketball here who went 27-1 and hosted all the way through the Elite Eight. Whether it was looking at something like the New England Patriots, who just always seem to be successful. We want to model ourselves after people who are very successful and groups that are very successful. So that was big, to just kind of start on the same page with all those conversations. Beyond that, it was me just trying to have as much face time with those guys as possible, whether that's going around and walking around campus just to bump into them, whether it's inviting them in for random conversations. We had a Super Bowl party. I know they all got together and watched one of the men's national team games together. Finding excuses to be together and build those relationships, build that trust, has been vital for us as well. So that, in a nutshell, is a big piece of the process. I don't know how in-depth you want to go with each one of those little things.
You said you defined your leadership group as the whole team to start. Like, at some point, are you going to have like your team captains, and then you're going to have a leadership group, a smaller leadership group, or is that just your general approach, like we're all leaders?
I think we'll probably segment that off a little bit here as we get to a bigger team. Again, we only had really about 16 guys on a regular basis in those meetings. So anytime if I was going to go down to 5 or 6, it wouldn't really make sense. But once we get up a little bit, you've got that pyramid of leadership to me that I'll be the one at the top that kind of the umbrella for everybody else to take the blame or take the criticism. And then obviously the assistant coach underneath me, and get into the captains and leaders all the way down. But for right now, we've got time to define that here in the fall. And that's what a big part of our preseason is going to be revolving around, is indoctrinating the new guys into the way that we do things, the standards that we set, those non-negotiables. But one of the pillars that we have is love. And so getting guys together to spend time together, I just believe that you got to love the game, you got to love the guys you're around. I'm sure that you still stay in touch with a lot of those guys that you played with. I know I stay in touch with all the guys that I've played with and I've coached. So love is a really big piece of it, and love can take time. So we need to spend as much time together as possible.
Band of brothers, man.
Yeah.
Like that's what you end up being, right? Or sisters if you're on the women's side. But okay, so first, what had two questions that were really good. This always happens to me. What are some of the non-negotiables that you sort of have? And yeah, this is a good one. And not I don't mean this as a question to like, oh, look what you're doing that the previous coach is doing, but like, was there anything in particular that that your team, players on your team would say, this is different from what the previous, this is new to us, or different from the previous coach? So non-negotiables, and what is new?
Yeah, I think what's new is probably my focus on those culture pieces more so than the tactics immediately. I don't think that, and again, part of that is just having a smaller group here in the spring where we couldn't go, 11s in training. So you have to find different ways to make an impact with the guys that are here. But I definitely think that that's kind of who I am as a coach is building that culture, and I think I've had some success doing that at my 2 previous schools and 3 previous teams, if you think about it that way. But the non-negotiables that our guys came up with, we went through this.
Oh, they came up with.
Yeah.
Okay, this is interesting.
So we had probably about an 8 or 9 week process of those weekly meetings of talking about things, and obviously I massage some of my opinions in there, but I think again when we go back to guys having ownership of the program, there are my fingerprints on these 3 things that they came up with. But when we sat in a room, I just mediated the conversation. My assistant, because he wore the jersey, he played here, was able to put his voice in there as well. But I kind of told the guys, this is something that the legacy that you can leave. It doesn't matter how many goals you score or wins you have or starts you have on your resume. This culture is something that these guys can leave behind for hopefully a long, long time here at Transylvania with the men's soccer program. But the 3 pillars that these guys kind of came up with and defined are love, discipline, and humility. And so for me, again, I just said it, but love, it kind of kickstarts everything. We all started playing this game and want to play collegiately because we love it. This is a get-to job, not a got-to job for me, where I get to wake up and have conversations like this with you. Or, I was out recruiting this weekend at Kentucky and Ohio State Cup, doing some different things around the region. And it's just what gets everything going. You wake up in the morning excited to practice or to play the game or to just go kick around with your buddies, whatever it might be. But then again, the relationship aspect of loving the guys you're around, I can flip it into recruiting as well, where I want guys that love Transylvania to be here. I don't want to be a second option. I know that I'm not going to be everybody's first option. That's okay. We get told no all the time, but the guys that commit to us, I want them to be excited about it. The discipline part is just the everyday process. It's whether you're waking up that half hour before you think you might need to, just to make sure you're ready for class, whether you're arriving early to training sessions, whether you're doing the extra work on a resume or an internship to get that job. All those little things that add up over time is the discipline of every day. And then to me, humility is the thing that really unlocks the whole process, where no matter how many days in a row, maybe you've shown up to class on time and prepared, or you've aced the test, or you've scored goals, or you've won games, being humble enough to start that process all over the next day is really, really important to me. So those are our 3 main non-negotiables, and that's kind of what governs everything that we do. We do, family is what we say every time when we break out from a huddle. So that love aspect is in that as well. But those are the things that they came up with, and I was really, really pleasantly surprised with those pillars being what's going to, govern our team here moving forward. And that's my job now to make sure I make decisions and the guys are upholding those on a day-to-day basis.
That is impressive that they came up with those on their own. Like that's that I count me impressed. You could tell your team, like some guy in New Jersey was impressed with that. You don't expect to see. I mean, is terrible. Not terrible, but like you don't expect to see college guys come up with things that we talk about in corporate setting, like. So anyhow,
it's a credit to the guys that I walked into for sure. I think that they were excited about talking about that and defining those things, and I told them all along that to me culture is what catches you when you fall. This is life, whether it's adjusting to college, whether it's maybe not getting the job you wanted, not starting, not whatever. These are the things that the lessons that we're trying to teach and help them again after they graduate here. Yes, I believe this will help us win some games and have some fun here while they're on campus, but after that it's those values that if they can live them out, I really think that's what leads to successful people later in life.
I'm starting to see why you took the job. Like you are right by saying that you walked into something that right, you can't ask for a better set of circumstances or the program that's there, the players that are there. And I am particularly interested in the fact that you said, you didn't concentrate on tactics to start, you concentrated on culture, and I'm a big culture guy too. It's the framework by which everything operates, and your success or failure is going to be determined by the strength of that framework, right?
Yeah.
So, but I do have to ask, I mean, do you, without sort of giving your competition the clues as to how to beat you in the fall, how do you like to play? What is it? What kind of style do you like to play?
I think that it's intelligent play, whether that's, look, we've struggled building out of the back and they've got a few chances on goal, so maybe we do need to be a little bit more direct in this game because we can't seem to beat their press. But a big piece of the guys that I like to recruit and the way I like to coach our players is, this is the world's greatest game because they don't have to listen to me every step of the way on the field. They get to go out there and make those decisions themselves. And at the end of the day, if they're looking over to the sidelines waiting for me to tell them what to do, it's too late. The moment's gone. And so recruiting and training intelligent players, guys that can problem solve and guys that understand the nuance of the game is a really big piece of what I like to do. I like possession with a purpose. I'm not going to claim to be this, brilliant manager that can, pinpoint and tell, beat Pep and say, hey, you need to be a quarter step this way and make this pass that way. But again, empowering the guys to make their own decisions when they're on the field is huge. Yes, I think I've got a responsibility as the guy in charge to give patterns of play, to give looks, to give reads to our players so that there is an element of predictability to what we're trying to do, at least internally. But for me, it's a style that I would love to play in. A guy that, I've coached a lot of players, and they, anytime you get a question from a player, well, coach, what about this? When we see that moment, I love those discussions because it's never the same question twice. And then answering that with our principles of play and allowing them to see why at some point it may be option A, but at some point it might be option B. And I think that the struggle at times is making sure that they make the right choice every time, when in reality they probably have to mess it up a couple times before they get that properly. So I'm doing my best to avoid giving you a straight up answer there, but I think intelligence is really important to me and problem solving, and so that's how I train my guys. The exact system, the exact way that we're going to do that is probably going to fluctuate a little bit every single year. I've been in it long enough to know that every single team's different. With culture, with positions, with what makes them good. You may have a really good group of technical players where you can, pass one year, and you graduate some guys, you bring in some other, and maybe now you're a little bit more athletic and can be a little bit more 1v1 oriented or direct. So again, I think it's my job to put my student athletes in a position to be successful, but the common thread through all of that is going to be the intelligence and problem-solving ability that we're going to try and teach on a day-to-day basis.
That's a good dodge. Like no one's going to know how to beat you now based on what you just told me, which is probably.
Yeah.
um, and by the way, you have too much hair to be Pep, so I think you'd
That's
have to do
true. I'm
something
okay
about
with that. I'm okay with
that. Yeah. Hey, how much did you watch a lot of video on your team before your first practice? And then conversely, like, what was your first practice like? Was there things that you were looking at, or were you just kind of like, yeah, we're just going to go through a regular first spring practice?
So I watched film of them prior to taking the job to have an idea of what they looked like, and kind of wanted to, ask my assistant kind of what his thoughts were, and see where we were aligned. But after I got the job and we were doing some things, I tried not to there the couple weeks leading up to training, because I didn't want to have too many preconceived notions. I think anytime you can come into a new group of players, you have the opportunity to maybe see something that wasn't there previously. So the first few training sessions, there were some technical things and allowing them to hear my voice as a coach that we worked on. But a lot of it was again, putting them in some problems, whether it was, a unique thing in a small-sided game or just letting them play, so that I could kind of see how they interacted with each other and the traits that they kind of had coming into the spring. I think anytime you're looking at a team, you want to make sure that you know where they are before you try and take them to where you want them to be. So that was valuable for me to have those first few sessions where we did them just before spring break, so we got the guys in and they were able to play, get rid of some of that testosterone that's been pent up over the winter time, and let them have some fun and get it out, and then really planned a more intentional spring training sessions after that. So yeah, leading up to it was just, let's keep my eyes open, make sure that we're perceiving everything properly before we put in a plan afterwards.
Are there any things after your spring season that are there any things that you any challenges you think you have to deal with immediately? Like you mentioned, and I'm not saying that this was the case, but you mentioned, you're struggling to pass the ball around the back. Mm-hmm. So is that something that you have to address? Or
I think that the biggest battle for me this fall is just going to be the sheer number of new players. I don't think that there was any one thing in this group that was a glaring deficiency. I think that there was a lack of competition when you have such a small roster here this past fall and this spring. So bringing in guys to have some what I hope is healthy competition. I believe that iron sharpens iron, but in order for that to happen, you got to bang it against itself quite a bit. Yeah. So I expect there to be, some good, healthy conflict and some good, healthy competition. So I think getting the guys to understand and embrace what healthy competition looks like is going to be key. That will be new for this group of guys. They've been fantastic. Our spring game, I think I saw a lot of excitement, a lot of really, really good things. Obviously, there's always some things you can work on, but to me, the glaring, I'll say, deficiency is that there's not been a whole lot of competition on the roster here for this past, I'll say, 9 months, just because of the unfortunate circumstances there that they've come through. So that's my focus is making sure that we have competition, but that we can teach them how to have that in a healthy way.
I you know what, that's a great point, because I should have known that would have been the answer. You're bringing in 17 guys, maybe more, into the fall who have no experience with Transylvania, have no experience what it's like to be in college generally, and let alone have any experience playing collegiate ball, which I do think there's a jump transition. We'll talk about a little bit later, but of the 16 guys you got, like, what and after the spring, is there anything that surprised you, soccer wise?
I think that this is a group of guys that is a good core group of players. that they all want to do the right thing. They all want to be together. They want to get out there, and they were hungry for that competition. So I think that was a little bit surprising to me. You never really know what you're walking into when you come from an outside perspective. But when we put out our kind of spring schedule, the first couple weeks, where we had some open field opportunities for them. They're doing strength and conditioning things, and the first question I got back was, "Coach, can we add this or can we add that?" And they wanted to do more. And so to me, it's a pleasant surprise, definitely. But it was surprising that you have a group of guys that, is really, really hungry to come out and make a difference next year. There was one of them that said to me, I kind of posited the question, what do you guys want this team to represent? What is this spring and this fall? What do you want it to represent long term? And one of them said, we want this to be the year that Transy got right back to the winning ways that it's familiar with, and you can say that was the season that changed it and got them right back on track. Yeah. And so when you have guys viewing it from that perspective, it's not just simply, I want to get all conference and I want to score 10 goals and this and that. It's not the very narrow purview that some players have. I was really impressed by that when I walked in the door, that there's some guys here that understand what it means to really set the future up for success. And that fifth-year senior asked me that question about what's going to make his last year great, but he's one of the guys that has been fantastic in helping us, continue to develop the culture and keep our eyes focused on something that's bigger than any one individual.
Yeah. That's what you want, right? Mm-hmm. Like you don't want it a rolling year, you want it like whether you're coming in or leaving, you are part of something much bigger than 30 guys on a roster playing in the fall, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So you've been super successful, and we're going to, out into the future, obviously you've been super successful at Transy. You've done impeccable work. What does your program look like when it's there?
I think it's the same thing we've been talking about. It's a collective group of guys that are there for the greater good. That at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who scores the goal or who starts the game, but it matters more that after the game we're all celebrating together. And when they graduate, they want to come back. They want to be a part of it. It was a unique circumstance for me to coach for the school that I graduated from, and that might have been the most rewarding part of that job is knowing now that there's guys that are excited to come back and be a part of it. So I think for me, that's what it's all about, is that when guys can come back, 5, 10, 15 years afterwards, and with their own kids, their own families, and say, yeah, this is where it happened. And those conversations that I'm sure you're well aware of, that, hey, you remember when so-and-so did this and that, and to me, it's those are the really, really exciting things about being a coach, is you get to know players from 16, 17 years old, sometimes younger, all the way through and see what they can accomplish with their lives, and that's deeply, deeply rewarding. And I think that's going to be the sign of it. Yes, I hope to have some, conference championship trophies and NCAA tournament success. That's, you said, you put that quote in there earlier. That is a definite goal of mine.
Your job depends on it. No,
yeah. My old head coach, he always said, he said that, every athlete has an ego. And so to sit here and tell you that I don't care about that stuff would be a straight lie. But I do think that the rewarding aspect of it, yes, I love winning games and I hate losing. But the ultimate reward is seeing these young men grow into real men and be productive and successful in their lives.
That's the icing, the winning is the icing. It's all the other stuff that you do that gets these guys ready for whatever their future life is going to be and how connected they feel. That's the real cake, right? And then the icing is the winning will just, to me, I have this crazy idea that if you do that stuff right, the winning will come. Like, it's just,
that's the goal.
That's so.
Yeah.
All right, do you mind? We shift to recruiting. Just some general stuff on recruiting.
Yeah.
So I am one of the crazy weird guys that hangs out at d3soccer.com on the message boards and reads, and so one of the guys had some questions that I thought were really good, and I figured I would, why do the work myself when somebody else is willing to do it for me? Do you use the recruiting websites? The NCSA, all those different websites for recruiting purposes. Do you use any of those, or not really? You just sort of do your own. You have your own recruiting process.
Look, the piece of advice I give to every kid that comes on campus and talks to me is that I think everybody's race is a little bit different, not just through life, but especially in the recruiting process. And so there are value to those institutions, I'll say, whether NCSA, you've got a bunch of them that do various things. But I think it's about how you use those and what your expectations are. That alone is not going to do the job. You can't just sign up for one and then expect them to do all the work, right? So we find players from everywhere. Sometimes it's a random email from a kid that we would have never known about. Sometimes it's going to a field and watching and hey, that's the one that we identified and it all works out. Sometimes it's a video that comes across from those agencies, if you want to call them that. It's really dependent on the kid, and I think that what you're doing here as well as some other people is to educate people about that recruiting process is huge. But I would give the advice to pretty much everybody that your race is your own. If you know what you want out of a school, I think an email to schools that fit that description or those metrics, it works pretty well. But if you don't know what you want and you're open to every opportunity, and even if you just want a little bit of more expert help out there, I think that there's value, but I don't by any means think that it's necessary that you have to go through one of those to have a successful college recruiting experience.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the kids, they're not going to find anything for you, right? It's how much you put into it. That's what's going to find. That's what's going to find your way to somebody like you looking. Oh, look at that, right? There's no lightning in a bottle that you could open up and just be like, hey, I'm recruited. It just does not happen that way.
And on the other hand, if you're the best player in America, you probably don't have to do too much to get recruited, right? So I think that the big piece there that I think some kids miss on is the self-awareness piece. If you're right now you just graduated your senior in high school and you're trying to get a big D1 offer, you're probably late to that game.
Good luck.
So just having the self-awareness and knowing where you fit. So I think a lot of times it's hopefully those agencies and groups and club coaches and things like that are honest with those players about where their expectations should be. And that's not always an easy pill to swallow or to deliver. But I think as long as you can keep that there and then, again, run your own race, that's the advice I would give to those people.
It's a good point. I do think honesty is honesty from whoever is serving you from the recruiting perspective, even coaches who are doing the recruiting, to yourself as a player, understanding where you are in that process and legitimately, do you have the talent to play for UNC?
Yeah.
Or do you think you do, right?
Yeah.
There's difference. I've encountered a lot of them who think differently about what the reality is, and I think that's the honesty so we always talk in my house about brutal honesty. It might make you work a little bit harder if you hear the unvarnished truth the way I see it. And
the nice thing is that the coaching community, we have relationships all over the place. So a lot of times, I can call somebody and say, hey, what do you think? And I can trust that opinion. And the guys that give it to me straight are the guys that I keep going back with, and we have a good relationship. So you don't want somebody selling you, some false truths.
Yeah, and then you get the player, and then you find out like has no business being on the field, right? Like
Yeah.
that ends that, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, what? Another question. What are your thoughts on showcase tournaments? Do you like them from a recruiting standpoint? Do you not? And do you go to them? I guess I would just ask: do you go to them with in mind with like a handful of players that you want to see, or are you going there to find something that you might not know you're going to find?
I think anytime that as a college coach, when we can go see a bunch of games at the same location, you're going to have a lot of success getting us there. Some places are nice to us and give us food and that sort of stuff, so that's always a pro. Yeah, I'm a fan of those events. I think that there's some prestige there and allows people to get out and the players to get out and play without hopefully the pressure of an ECNL or a league game or whatever it might be. When we're going there, we normally, you can sign up for those events so people know that you're going to be there, and we'll get, a slew of emails from players there, and provided that they're within our purview. If you're 10 years old asking me to come watch you play, it's probably not going to happen. But we do our best to see those kids that have reached out to us. We're not perfect in that regard by any stretch, but then you also have those teams and those relationships that I had a club coach that, was messaging me and just said, hey, I think I got a good group of guys. They're a little bit young right now, but you should come out and watch and just get ahead of it a little bit because I think there's some good players here. So again, those relationships always come back. And some of my most successful recruiting individual players that I've gotten are just sheer luck. You go somewhere and you're like, well, hey, I'm going to watch this game just to check on it. And there's a guy there that's, oh man, he's pretty darn good, and it works out. Sometimes it is just a direct email and you get going that way, but again, it's all over. That's part of the frustration and beauty of being a college coach is you put the hours put into recruiting don't always correlate with the success that
No,
you have.
that's very true.
So.
That's very true. It is one of the. That's one of the things I always thought, man, if there is a way in which I could just say, if you follow these 10 steps, you're going to end up with 10 great ball players. There's never, no rhyme or reason, right? Just some years it is, some years it isn't.
Yeah.
But let me just clarify one point.
Mm-hmm.
So if I send you an email that I'm going to have a game and I want to go to Transylvania, at me being 53 years old, you're not going to come watch my game?
I might ask for some film on you. I'm sure we can dig up something. So maybe that's what we need to do is we need to get a highlight film together.
Start with the highlights or the lowlights more than like when I busted my shoulder. Do you do? Yeah, don't worry, I won't be sending you any film. Do you do ID camps? Do you have an ID camp?
Yeah, so this summer we actually won't have one. Our turf field's getting redone here this summer,
Oh, nice.
So there's not really a time frame where that's going to work. But yeah, I'm a fan of those. I think again, as a student athlete, you should put yourself in a position where you know what you're getting out of it. We try to invite kids and have kids here who are interested in Transylvania. I sell it to them as an opportunity to interact with me on the field. Through the recruiting process, we have phone calls and visits and text messages and all that sort of stuff. And you may really like me there, but maybe I'm just a crazy guy on the field and you don't like me, right? So I think that there's an important piece to that when you can get on campus and interact with a coaching staff on the field. I do think that can add a lot of value to a recruit's experience. I'll work some bigger ID camps for D1 schools to get out there and that's a little bit more. They're there to see that big D1 school or to because they know there's going to be other schools there. I haven't done a whole lot of combination ID camps in the past where I would host one with another school, but that's always an option out there. So I think there's value there, but again, it's self-awareness that we talked about earlier. I think needs to come in for the student athlete as far as what are they looking for. Again, I can tell you that I think it's a great opportunity to come to campus and see how I interact on a field. But if you've got no desire in that and you just want to come, and maybe you want to see what other talent is coming to that ID camp. Again, there's use for it. I don't charge a crazy amount. I'm not trying to make a bunch of money off of kids. Trying to continue to find another way to develop those relationships, and as a coaching staff, figure out which ones of the kids that we really like from a personality perspective as much as a talent perspective.
To me, I don't know if it's right, but I always the ID camps to me tend to be indication of interest. Like if a kid is willing to go to your camp, your ID camp, and spend the money and the time to go through the process, there's an indication of interest in Transylvania. Whether it's 100%. Indication of you're my number one school or you're my number 10, it doesn't matter. That their list includes Transylvania, and then it just becomes: do they like you? Do they like the program? Do they like the campus, the guys? Blah 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 blah. And then that sort of modulates it. So
there's a group of commits that every single year will come from our ID camps that I've been a part of in the past. I mean, sometimes it's 7 or 8, sometimes it's 3 or 4, but again, I think that is a little bit of a precursor to where we invite the guys that we are interested in, and they are interested in us. So, but every year there's a kid that pops up on the radar. You go, oh, I mean, he just signed up for it, and that's a pretty good player right there. So, there's definitely value to them, but I would tell kids to be a little bit more intentional. There are some kids and families I know that, well, we got to hit this one this week and that one next week and this and that and da-da-da-da. And by the end of the summer, the kid has traveled all over and can't remember which school was which. So, again, I think they're valuable, like you said, especially as a player coming through to get in and probably get a really good vibe of what's going on for that program.
Yeah, and like I said, sometimes it ends up being just completely relational, like the relationship part of it. Like, man, I really liked, I was a really big fan of you, the way you talked on the field and sort of engaged with players. Whereas if they came to one of my sessions, they might have been like, that guy's a jerk. He doesn't know what he's talking about, right? And I think that matters. That's the sort of thing that matters. But do you have any thoughts on high school soccer? I know. Well, I don't know, but I know at least where we live, like the high school season is in the fall, so it doesn't it runs at the same time as college, so you don't get a lot of chances. But do you have any thoughts on high school game?
I think, however you want it to go, there's a lot of passion involved with high school sports, in the States. We actually have a group coming in. Lexington Sporting Club is a USL side that's going to come into Lexington here, is kind of buying out a couple of the local clubs, and that's one thing I talked to their sporting director about. He's coming from overseas, and I think it's a shock to them how much high school soccer means to kids. They have an opportunity to go out, and it's that hometown pride. So I love that aspect of it. During COVID year, when there was no fall college soccer for the Division III level, I went around to a bunch of high school games, and it was really fun to be back in that atmosphere, and where the parents are knowing everybody and getting together, and the student sections, all that sort of stuff that growing up as a kid, when you're looking at that level, you can't wait to get out there under the lights and have that student section. So from that perspective, I absolutely love it. I think it's tough to get there, like you said, to a game when I'm a college coach. And it's probably less likely to have a large pool of players that I'm interested in when you compare it to an ECNL event or a Blue Chip or Crossroads or something like that. But I think there's value in going out and seeing those and seeing that atmosphere. It's just tough to make happen. And if I'm fortunate to be in a spot where I don't have to count pennies on where I'm going and what I'm doing, but if you're in a spot where that's the case, it's probably high school games are probably not your pick. I think those are more for guys that are later in the process. Right now we've got a bunch of rising seniors that we're in communication with for the 2023 class, and if we can get out and show them some support at a high school game, that shows them that we're that extra bit interested in them, and gives us a different environment to see them in, where there's probably a history teacher or something that may be out watching the game that has great things to say about a project that the kid did who would have never come up otherwise. So there's a lot of really cool things on the relationship perspective that come along with high school. And again, I think the guys just really enjoy playing it. I was texting a recruit earlier today who was, kind of laying out his goals for his high school season because it means that much to him.
I'm a big fan. I think and you said it, the emotion of a high school game probably resembles a college soccer game more so than a club game. And I tell my kids this all the time. They're more than likely going to remember the great game they had in high school and a rivalry game than they would any club game. Just the nature of it. And it's not a good thing, bad thing that I'm thinking about. It's just that's the way high school is, right? There's a lot more emotional commitment into it just because you're representing your school and you got your friends and your love interest is up there, all that crazy stuff.
Well, hey, I mean, I don't know of any, student sections for club games. That's for sure. They're not out there doing that sort of stuff. I do think there's some top end clubs that do a good job where an older or younger group might be on the sidelines pumping them up. But that badge of honor playing for your high school is a pretty cool thing.
So you mentioned that you're replacing the turf at the stadium, and I know the school that you were at that shall not be named anymore has a blue turf field.
Yeah.
See, I know my stuff.
Yeah.
I know my stuff. Like how big? And it looks like at Transylvania, the facilities are top notch from what I could tell, just online. How important is that stuff in the recruiting process, that you have a soccer stadium and you have these facilities that make an athlete feel special?
Well, I think that's it right there. Is you want again to make that athlete want to come to your school, and sometimes it's the relationship is all you need. Sometimes it's the relationship plus, by the way, look at this great place you can play and train and do all these sorts of things. At the end of the day, here at Transylvania, we are an institution, both academically and athletically, that wants to push our student athletes to excel at a high level. And if they're going to do that, whether it's we're going into med school or getting a job right out of college, or competing at a high level in a conference title in a national tournament, you have to invest in those facilities and things that are going to help push them to that extent. It doesn't help them grow if we're not constantly challenging them and doing new things for them and providing them with additional opportunities to make themselves better. Whether, for us, we have a great writing center on campus that the tutors are linked right into, and there's study rooms in the library that, it's labeled for each class when they're going to be there and what time and what day, all those sorts of things. And that's an upgrade to a facility to help them academically. So when you can upgrade a facility to help them athletically, that I think is just as valuable. When we want to, we want to recruit and bring high-level achievers into our program, those high-level achievers have expectations and desires that they want to be on the cutting edge of things. So again, I've said it 3 different times there in 3 different ways, but it's huge. There's the wow factor of, wow, that's really nice, kind of shock and awe. But what it gets down to is trying to give them more tools to their tool belt so that they can be successful and push themselves to the extent that they can.
I think it's a must-have. If you're going to be at that certain level, you have to invest. And again, that's easier said. That's easy for me to say in this room, but all right, last one, and I'll let you get on with drinking it from the fire hose and getting ready for the fall. If you could sit down with your 17 recruits that you're bringing in for the fall, what do they what's This is the hardest question I ask because I can never phrase it the right way. Because I'm trying to be delicate, because I use terms that someone else is like, well, that's not necessarily accurate. But anyhow, what is it, do you think, that those players are going to have to learn or grow into when they step on campus for that first preseason practice and that first season, right? Like, because their game is not the collegiate game. So what is that gap that you think that they're going to have to sort of learn quickly if they're going to succeed?
Well, I think I'm going to step back a little from just soccer specific and talk about the fact that they're going to have to learn and embrace failure. You know, a lot of these kids are coming through, and you have high school graduations, you have grad parties, and everything's going to be absolutely fantastic, and there's life is perfect, all this sort of stuff a lot of times, and you get to college, and whether that's
not that way.
Yeah, whether that's coming in and seeing, hey, that fitness test was harder than I thought it would be, or you know, that man, I'm not the top guy on the field anymore, or man, these classes are a little bit tougher than I thought. Oh man, I got to figure out how to do my own laundry, and sometimes I got to. I mean, all those things. So I think for me, a big part of that development process for our incoming guys is it's okay to fail. It's okay to not have a perfect day every single day. Again, we do all those graduation parties, and you see this kid going to that school, and well, they're doing this, and social media makes everything look perfect.
Of course it does. Look at me.
Yeah. And so I think teaching them sometimes, you know, that failure is okay, and embracing it and learning from it. But also just that they don't have to have it all figured out. Kind of building in and teaching them how to work hard and how to be gritty. The guys that come in and are really, really successful at anything in life, but particularly college athletics, are the ones that can pick themselves back up. And a lot of times when you get freshmen coming in, they haven't had to do that too often. And so the guys that you go after are the ones that maybe have shown that they can do that. And have gone through some of those sorts of things. So that was a non-soccer specific answer, but I really do think that's what's the best answer for me as I look to these guys is they're going to have a bad day. And so it's all about, one, supporting them when they stumble, but two, letting them know that we're still going to push for that standard. It's just okay that you're not there right away. And as long as you're making progress along, you know, over time towards those goals, that's what we care about more than anything else.
That's a great response. I'm actually going to take that and make it into a shorter clip, but and post it, because that's really interesting. And I just look back at my time. Like, again, in the 80s, it was a lot different, right? Like, there was culture, you know, It was totally not that way, and you kind of was like sink or swim, and there were some days that you were sinking, and it was just not, and you just sort of figured out a way to deal with it, some successfully, some not. Anyhow, Coach, thank you very much. Really do appreciate this. I'm going to put whatever information I can glean, I'll put it down in the description.
Okay.
Your website, your recruiting form, all that kind of stuff. I really do appreciate you taking that. I've become, even though you went to the school that shall go unnamed, I'm a fan. I'm gonna have to procure myself a hat from Transylvania.